These 5 things sound amazing on podcasts, but until you actually own a property, it's completely different.
Yeah, so we've been in real estate for about 5 years now. Our portfolio is worth about $4 million, and that consists of 5 different buildings, adding up to 10 total doors. And everything that we're going to talk about isn't really theory. This is our lived experience and our personal opinion. So without further ado, let's get into our top 5 lies.
Oh, yeah. All right, so lie number 1, cash flow is everything. This is one of those lies that I feel like every podcast, especially back maybe 5-10 years ago, even probably still today, that everyone was talking about cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. You can buy a $100,000 home, make $200 per home. You keep stacking those, and pretty soon you're making 10 grand, and you can quit your job. I feel like we learned quickly that was not true.
Correct.
Turns out real estate's expensive, even after you buy the property. So, for example, in putting it in real world perspective with our portfolio. So with our portfolio, and again, we can make a video in the future of our specific numbers, but ballpark, we're looking at like $5,000 to $6,000 in cash flow a month. However, how often do we realistically see that? And that's like on paper, like never.
And to caveat that too, all of our properties were full gut renovations before we put tenants in place. So the maintenance calls that we do get are minimal. However, things always come up.
Right.
And a real life example was this week. The shower pan cracked and disconnected from the wall plastic. Yeah. So we needed to send someone there. And of course, that's someone's time and labor, the spray foam, the caulking, all
just
all
to
of
show
the
up
things.
now is, there's charging a few $100s just to show up, which I understand, but you do that across the portfolio and it quickly eats away. And then you need every year to maintenance your HVAC system. You need to just go around and maintenance maybe the ducts, like the
foundation. Sometimes they're cracked. Just so many things always come up. And yes, it's nothing to scoff at either. Like that is a big cash flow number, especially in a New England market. But with that said, to Kevin's original point, is that's not just in your pocket that you're ready to retire off of.
Right. Yeah. I mean, cash flow is very fragile. I think people want to grab it and put it in their pocket, but it goes away very quickly. I think some months we do get it, but then in a few months later, it's gone because something else happened, which we planned for, and that's kind of part of the game. I think the game we're trying to play is not just cash flow. What we're looking for is appreciation on 2 different fronts. There's the forced appreciation and market appreciation. So I like to think personally, cash flow keeps us alive long enough to where we can actually take advantage of all that appreciation. So if you have no cash flow, you're going to be forced to sell because you can't manage the property. If you have cash flow, you can keep that property as long as you want because you can manage the property appropriately, you can fix things, and then when it's the right time, because you either made improvements because of the cash flow, which would be forced appreciation, or you waited long enough and the market has changed and it's up a couple $100,000 and you want to sell or cash out refinance, that's when you really get your big paydays are on those things. So it is a longer term play. But yeah, that's line number 1 for me.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll add is that's why it's so important when you're analyzing a deal, if you're seeing that it's just breaking even, or if it's just breaking even, just skip it, because even if you might be cash flowing that $100 or $200, maybe you'll cash flow $100 a month year 1, but then your taxes go up the following year, and then there's your cash flow. And just little things like that you probably don't foresee if you hadn't owned a property previously. So
every
something
single
to keep
year,
an eye out for.
Taxes, insurance, even water bills and stuff like that are going up every single year.
Cool. So that's a wrap on lie 1. Lie 2 is the liability and risk is too high.
Yeah, I think we all feel this. I know I've thought it personally. I know a lot of people in our families, friends that have felt the same way, that just the risk of real estate is much higher than, let's say, the stock market, which is true. Like, at the end of the day, like, you want something not risky at all, go in the stock market, or there's a million other investments out there that are very low risk, right?
The key there is low risk, not no risk. And as if you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki talks about like the Chicken Littles, that, you know, the sky is always falling. Those are the people that we're talking about, like within this lie, or the people that are always thinking that it's doomsday.
Yeah. And so something I read this, I won't take credit for this. I can't remember where it came from, but there was like a couple lines of defenses is the best way. And it was 4 lines of defenses specifically for legal lawsuits, anything in that realm. The first line of defense is just avoiding it in the first place. You know, you have to remember it's your property. So if there's something you can do, whether it's salting, shoveling, hand railings, making sure your property's just up to code. How many properties have we toured that we were looking at buying that were just way out of code, that are just hazards walking in there? I don't know how anyone legally was living.
The floors were like this.
Yeah. And listen, they're old houses, I get it, but there's still a level of responsibility just to avoid a lawsuit in the first place. And that also goes for making sure our leases are written properly, how we talk to tenants. We make sure, I mean, we assume every communication could potentially be seen by a judge. So that doesn't mean we're mean on it. It just means we're very careful with every single word we say. So again, first line of defense, avoid the lawsuit in the first place. If you can do something that may cost a little bit of money now, it could save you thousands or even your whole portfolio later. Next line of defense is great insurance. Don't cheap out on insurance. It's not worth it.
It's expensive, but yeah, it's worth it.
And you don't have to be an expert. We actually have a insurance broker that helps source out the best insurance for all our properties and can explain things really easily to us. And now with AI, you can throw those you can throw your insurance policies into AI and have it break it down and see where you're lacking, where you need more. The third thing is more insurance, umbrella insurance. So God forbid you go outside the scope of your own insurance above that, you know, $1 million, $2 million, whatever your liability limit is. Now you have a whole nother level of insurance umbrella, which is actually pretty cheap. That's one of the best parts. Yeah, umbrella is relatively cheap compared to normal insurance, so totally worth it. And then lastly, you can get into LLCs. Now, this is where I think a little bit of a lie also happens when it comes to liability. Is when we were starting, and today everyone still says, why are your properties not in LLCs? Put your properties in LLCs. And honestly, a lot of them are, depending on how we bought them.
Right.
But that's the point, is if you buy them in a personal loan, you can't just quick deed it out. And that's something that's been lied about on the internet for years.
Ever.
And yes, you literally can do it. Like, there are mechanisms. You can go to the state house and you can use an attorney and get it quick deeded over. But that does break your policy or your loan. Like, that's a little thing they like to call fraud. It's not as straightforward as that. And again, similar to other things we talked about, people get away with it all the time. It's not like the biggest issue in the world. It's always happening. Personally, I'm not willing to take that risk. Like, I'd rather do it the right way and just up my insurance in certain situations rather than try and limit it on the LLC. And maybe down the road when we pay off a property, we'll transfer it then. Maybe we'll get a new mortgage that is in that LLC and we can then finally put it in the LLC. But it's not as simple as just, let's just put it in an LLC. Yeah,
and we've had a lot of conversations with mortgage brokers about our own strategy, and it's coming from them, and I trust the professional's advice. Why put a target on your back if you don't need to?
Right.
Just avoid it altogether.
Yeah. And lastly, I think something you like to say a lot is, although there's liability in real estate, what's the risk of doing nothing in life? You know, are you happy? If you're looking into real estate, you're probably looking to elevate your life a little bit and or maybe prepare for retirement or something. And if you don't do this, what are your alternatives? And maybe you do have an alternative. But if you don't do it, that's also risky. Like you said, the Chicken Littles of the world.
Right, yeah. It's the risk of doing nothing. Do you want to stay where you're at in your life, or do you high risk, high reward? There's also that element too.
Yeah. This one?
Yeah, so line number 3, we have tenants are difficult, and it's so ridiculous. I mean, the joke that we all hear, right, is, well, it's not even a joke, just people say it. It's like, oh, I don't want a 2 a.m. phone call that the toilet's broken. Like, I'm not calling my landlord at 2 a.m. because I clogged a toilet. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's like the most ridiculous. We still hear it today from people.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't want that call. It's like, who's calling at 2 a.m. that when you're on the toilet?
Like, think about yourself for a second. Have you ever like been in that situation and you're like, I'm going to call my landlord right now? Like, no, it's so, we're making a joke of it, but it's so silly.
Yeah.
And a lot of, tenant calls like that, it's just, they just don't happen.
Yeah, it's pretty rare that we get crazy calls. Now, do calls happen? Absolutely. There are moments where we're in the middle of dinner and we have to address a situation. But that's so rare. I mean, I can count on one hand how many times that has happened in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Normally it's something that could be dealt with. Like, they'll text us, or we actually have a system for them now. But we'll get a notification that there's some maintenance or some problem, and it's something that can be dealt with within the next couple days or weeks. We may immediately talk to our handyman or plumber or whoever needs to be called, but then we're getting on the schedule with them. It's not something that needs to be addressed right then and there. Now, there are situations, though, where there is urgency.
Right, of course.
And with those, again, there's only so much you can do. Like, if it's a water leak, you can quickly walk them through, okay, we're going to have them turn off the water, and we'll get the plumber out there first thing in the morning. But again, how long did that take? 2 seconds to turn off the water, and then the situation is what it is. And then if it's an emergency beyond that, like, call the fire department, call the police station. Like, if it's a real emergency,
right, call a professional.
Don't call me.
Right.
I can't do anything about it. Call an emergency line.
Wags clearly agrees.
Yes.
But I think something too, when you're communicating with your tenants, is I like to take this like 3-step approach, and especially if it's in writing, I want to acknowledge their complaint or whatever they're informing me about, because everyone wants to feel heard. The next thing is show empathy. Like, obviously this sucks. Like, they don't want to deal with a burst pipe or a rodent, whatever it is. Acknowledge that, and again, make them feel heard, and then come up with a solution. Sometimes it's pointing them directly back to the lease, or other times it's us saying, okay, this is the actions that we're going to take to solve it. And it just lands every time. I think people, again, real estate, and this is a whole other episode in itself, but real estate is a people business. You are dealing with people, and you need to have clear communication. And in a lot of these situations, people are understanding, and you just have to manage those expectations. But I think another thing is also putting the right tenants in place, meaning you need to set those expectations from the start. If you're putting a tenant in your unit that you did your credit and background check and they have a history of not making payments and they have a low credit score, chances are that behavior is still going to stay the same. So they probably shouldn't be in your unit to begin with. So doing your due diligence from the start is like absolutely number one. And then back to the point of like my 3 kind of steps of communication.
Right. I think we'll have to make a video on that altogether.
Yeah.
All right, lie number 4, real estate is passive income. I feel like this kind of goes hand in hand with the cash flow point. I mean, all the famous gurus out there love to talk about, passive income and real estate. And if they're calling it passive income, they don't do real estate. I'm sorry to tell you. Anyone that truly does real estate investing, and at least as an operator, there's a couple other exceptions, but as an operator in real estate, this is not a passive business. Now, it's not crazy. Like, I do think it's very manageable. We both work W-2 jobs that require our full attention.
Right.
And then we're still able to do managing renovations, managing tenants, all that on the side, during lunch hours, after work, on the weekends. And it's all doable, but it does take time. I think people get very disappointed when they feel when they hear that it's not passive. The one thing I'm thinking from that is passive would be maybe if you're investing in someone else's syndication.
Yeah.
That I think would be one of the few places that you'd be a passive investor, but really all you're doing is moving that all the activity over to someone else, allowing someone else to do all the work, which is fine if that's the type of investor you want to be. If you want to be hands off but you want to be exposed to real estate, I think that's fine. It's just understand the position you're in, and that now though takes away your control. Right. So if you want to have control over your portfolio, you're going to have to be active, and that means that it takes time.
Right, and you really need to trust whoever that operator is and be on the same page and have the same alignment, because unfortunately if they do something that you don't agree with, you don't necessarily have a say. So.
Yeah, and I definitely don't want to scare people. Like, it is very doable, and there's a lot of systems that we have that I think again, in a whole nother video, we could go through our systems to make things nice and easy. But I think you slowly build those systems over time, and you only learn to build those systems once you probably run into an issue. Yep,
I would say that's true.
All right, and our last lie for this video, at least, lie number 5, you can write off everything. I think I get pretty passionate about this one.
You do, and I just have to take a nod to Schitt's Creek. Like when David and Johnny, he's like, that whole scene in the store of like, oh, well, everything, you bought all this stuff. And it's like, it's a write-off. The write-off people.
Yeah,
the write-off people, they're like the IRS, and like they will come for you. So let's dive into that. You
still have to pay for it. Like, a write-off isn't free. But more importantly, I think there's a lot of tax gurus out there right now. And you could get a lot of certifications that mean nothing unless they're a properly trained CPA lawyer, legal lawyer, CPA, and even then I would push them and question them on certain things because some of them are not trained in real estate specifically. There's a lot of nuances to real estate. There's a lot of nuances to business in general. And just because you think you can justify writing off that G-Wagon to go pick up some checks from 2 different properties and you had to drive there, so it's a full write-off, good luck explaining that to the IRS agent. I mean, listen, I don't agree with the government on a lot of things, but I'm certainly not going to get in a fight with them over anything.
You will not win.
Yes, you will lose if you're going to go fight the IRS. So we'd like to take a much safer path. We play it pretty safe. We have everything documented, and that doesn't mean we don't take advantage of tax credits or write-offs. Like, you should. That's one of the major benefits of real estate is all the tax benefits, and you 100% should maximize those the best you can. That just means following within the IRS rules and laws to avoid payment penalties or worse.
And if you hear like a TikTok or a reel and it just sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So fair, you learned a piece of information, write it down, and then when you meet with your accountant, make sure that you can actually do that.
Bring it up. I see stuff all the time and write it down and bring it up to them, and they'll tell me what's real and what's not real, and then even then I'll question it further and try and do my own research. I think it's good to push back and forth to come to some sort of mutual agreement, but if you're gonna, I always err on the side of caution at the end of the day, because again, I'm not going to get in a fight with the IRS.
Right.
All right, so those are our 5 lies. There's so many more from the gurus we hear day after day. I'd be curious what other lies you guys hear. Comment them below. I'm sure there's so many funny ones, especially again from the gurus of YouTube, Instagram, all the different.
I could talk about these for hours.
But these are ones that just popped out in our head. If you liked what you hear, give a thumbs up, subscribe. We're trying to give you some real raw content on what owning real estate is like. We've seen so much of the BS out there of, again, passive income, cash flow. It's super easy, and we're trying to give you what the reality is. We don't regret any of our real estate investing. It's still one of the best investment vehicles we've ever could have done, and we're so happy we did it. We just want to at least have people going into the investment with their eyes wide open, as well as hopefully give current active owners maybe a tip or two here or there, and maybe we can learn from you guys as well.
Absolutely. And I'm reading all your comments, so thank you for dropping them down in there. And maybe in the next one, we'll go through our current portfolio and talk about all the stuff as to why you should invest in real estate and all the benefits.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.